I'm Anthony Palmiato from OpenStax. Some of you who have been around have probably heard that before, and you've heard this before too. We're very, very excited to be talking about the nutrition textbook during this session, and just a few logistics about the session. First, it is being recorded. And the recording will be shared out in afterwards via communication and posted on the OpenStax YouTube channel. If you have any questions or comments, if you have distinct questions, that you really would like either OpenStax or Emerald to answer, uh, the Q&A is probably the best place for that. If you have more general comments, the chat is probably best. But if you have any direct questions, please put them into the Q&A, and we'll either get to them in progress or at the end, just depending. It's, as you know, it's kind of hard to kind of do both. We are dedicated to providing an inclusive environment as much as possible, and part of that is providing captions. So if you do need closed captioning, you can go to the bottom, probably the bottom of your Zoom environment. There should be a captions link. If you don't see it, there might be a more button with like 3 dots. You can click that and see it. And if you don't have that, you might have a bar sort of with us on there, and it would probably be to the right side of that bar if you need that as well. I think that is it. What I covered. Those basic things. Again, we'll be recording and sharing after. We'll be monitoring the chat, and I am. That's enough for me. So thank you so much, Emerald. I'll let you take it away. Thank you.
All right, let me see if I can get my share screen going here.
See me on the last one, fumbling around 9 screens.
Next one. So are y'all able to see my screen?
Yes, we're seeing it in the slides are in the sort of note, at least I am seeing it sort of in the note framing, but
that's not the frame I want. Let me see if I can redo that. Let's see. There we go.
There you go.
Now you're seeing it as, and it says nutrition for nurses. It's not the other one, right?
No,
okay.
That's right.
They both look the same.
Bilbrew is doing our next session as well on the NCLEX, so yes, he's doing triple duty. But no, yes, I see the right one. Thank you so much.
All right.
I'm gonna go off camera, but we'll still be here and we'll be in the chat and things like that.
Okay. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for joining me. I'm Dr. Emerald Bilbrew. I currently teach in the ADN program at Fayetteville Technical Community College here in Fayetteville, North Carolina. I've been a nurse for 22 years, been teaching for about close to 8 now. And I was one of the senior authors on this book. So they asked me if I can talk to you all a little bit about the vision for the book and how it can work in your program. So let's get started. And I am open to questions. If it, like he said, if it's direct questions that have to be asked right now, I'm fine with you interjecting. But if it is just general comments, it would be better to be in the chat. So the objectives of what we're going to do are going to be to discuss the vision of the book, the importance of this book for nursing education. I'm going to look at how this book differs from other nutrition books and how it follows the next gen NCLEX model. And then I'm going to look at how you can use this book to map whether you're teaching on the medical model or the concept-based model. All of North Carolina community colleges are required to teach on the concept-based model, and it's the newer way of teaching. So other colleges have started using this. So I kind of looked at it in both angles for you. As far as disclosures that were always required when we do any kind of, conferences, obviously I am vested in this book because I am one of the senior authors. However, this session is not really designed to sell the book to you because it's a free book, it's a free resource. I'm more looking at selling the importance of the book to you more than anything else. And this is one of the books that'll be the first one, from my understanding, in the series of nursing books that OpenStax is putting out. They have a lot of other books already, and this is their first series for nursing. So like all of their other nursing textbooks that will be put out, Nutrition for Nurses is going to be free. It's flexible. Um, this is in my way. Hold on one second, y'all. I can't see because of the picture. There we go. It can be viewed online. It's going to be downloadable as a PDF. The vision for this book is to be able to be flexibly integrated as nutrition content across both system-based and competency-based curriculum. It's written so it can be used in the program whether or not you have a nursing nutrition class that's separate. And I think that's kind of something that some programs have gotten away from. So it's important to note that you don't necessarily have to have a separate nutrition class to utilize this book. The book is going to have 20 chapters in 9 units, and it's organized by fundamentals and body systems. It emphasizes your evidence-based practice and holistic assessment to build nutritional awareness as far as your client-centered care. It's designed to help students to develop their clinical judgment as well as a deeper understanding on how nutrition actually impacts body systems across the lifespan and what a nurse needs to teach their students, teach their patients regarding nutrition when it comes to both healthy patients and your patients with certain disease processes. Also with the resources that will be included with this book, there's going to be instructor resources. They'll have LMS course shells, lecture slides, answer guides, and test banks that will be included like with every other book that they offer. Nutrition, like I said, is kind of missing in a lot of programs. So even our program, there's not a separate course for nutrition. So we as instructors are just left to weave it into the program because it's still very much an NCLEX subject. They take the NCLEX exam, even on the next gen portion, they're expected to know nutrition and what they're supposed to teach their clients about nutrition. But many programs don't even have a separate class for it. And if they do, they're teaching out of a book that is written as a generalized nutrition for everybody. A nutritionist will look at that book and it teaches to the nutritionist. It doesn't really teach to the nurse. This book is meant to teach specifically to the nursing community. That doesn't mean that other programs can't use this book because there is a basis of nutrition all the way around. But the thing that really interested me about this project when they first presented it to me is this is the first book that I've seen not only that had the vision to teach nursing, nutrition specifically for nursing, but it also was designed to follow the next gen format, which is a big deal since that's what NCLEX has gone with. And I liked the way we set it up in the fact that, like I said, it doesn't have to be a separate class. There's ways you can use this book and weave it throughout your program as a second resource for your students so that they get all the nutrition, content that they're supposed to have without you as the instructor left to try to put a little slide at the end of your, your lecture or something and say, hey, don't forget, this is important about nutrition. This gives them a much more in-depth look because it's going to go across the entire lifespan. So with your other nutrition books, and I'm not sure how many of the people here actually still have a nutrition separate class because I haven't seen one in a good long time. But when you do look at the other nutrition books out there, you're looking at, like I said, what a dietitian really needs or what a nutritionist would need. And it doesn't distinguish what a nursing student needs to know for holistic care. When you look at the chapters for this book, you're going to see that the first chapter, the first chapter and all the units except for unit 1, because it's structured a little different, follow a very specific nurse-oriented pathway. So I don't know how familiar you are yet because Next Gen is still pretty new with the CJMM model. And not new being it came out last year, but I think some programs were hesitant to really do a lot of in-depth learning about it till it popped up, because with COVID, they kept putting it off, because I think it was actually supposed to come out a little bit earlier than it did. But the first chapter in each unit follows that next gen pathway. So it starts off with recognizing cues, and that first section of that chapter is going to talk about assessment, and it goes on through assessment of a normal client and assessment of a client with a particular illness. So for instance, one of the chapters that I worked on was renal. And, renal patients, when they're sick, they have a lot of dietary needs. It will talk about, here's your normal patient that has the normal, renal system without illness. Here are the things that you expect to assess with the patient if they have a good nutritional status and a normal renal, system. And then it also looks at, here is the illnesses and what that would look like and their nutritional needs. Because with recognizing cues, that first part of NCLEX, they have to know what to assess. Then it goes in that same first section, we look at analyzing cues, where it talks about, if you find that they have this particular problem, here is the nutritional deficiency you should be educating them on. Because when you talk about analyzing cues on the CJMM model, you're talking about them being able to take what they assessed and know what it means for that client. So if you have a person with a healthy renal system and you see this particular assessment finding, what does that mean as far as their nutritional status, versus one that doesn't have a healthy system and you find this, what does that mean for their nutritional status? So it's like taking the disease or the healthy patient, because it runs through both kind of at the same time, but very separately, that you can distinguish between the two. It runs through what you expect to see as far as a nutritional standpoint, not here's the medications we'd use to treat the diseases like you would in a medical, med-surg textbook, but using it in the perspective of nutrition. Because a lot of diseases that we teach, obviously, nutrition can have a big impact on them. Can we stop the progression of the disease? Can we prevent it from happening altogether? Those are the kind of things that we want to look at with the book, because that's truly the case with a lot of nutrition. After it goes through analyzing cues, then we go into the next portion, which is prioritizing hypotheses and generating solutions, where they look at what care this client needs based on what they assessed. And then what we should do about it. What's the most important thing? So if they have these nutritional deficits, what education do we give them? What should be in their care plan? What foods even qualify to, fall under high potassium foods or low phosphorus foods, or whatever we're trying to adjust in their diet. After it goes through that, we look at take actions, and that's, what is the nurse actually going to implement for this client, either the healthy client that we found some deficiency in, or the non-healthy client that needs a specific diet plan. And then the last section is going to be your evaluation of outcomes. And what you'll see is they have unfolding case studies in the chapters, and the evaluation of outcomes at the end of the chapter, the case study is used to evaluate the outcome of all the actions we did throughout the unfolding process through the chapter, to see, did those things we do work? And if they did, great. If they didn't, what plan does the nurse need to look at now? So we kind of roll it through the whole process. I think I just did that. I have a bad habit of going so in depth that I forget the next slide says something. So y'all have to please forgive me. It has been a very long day. I see someone laughing. Y'all must do this too. I'm so sorry. So I actually didn't need this slide, because this says exactly what I just said. Let's see. Let me go on to the next slide then. I'm sorry. It's been a long day. I've been working, y'all. Sorry. The students been getting to me today too. I don't know how about y'all, but they were working me hard today. Anyway, so let's talk about some, thank you. Let's talk about some of the special features that the book also includes. So like I said, one of the major components is the unfolding case studies. they start at the beginning of the chapters, that second chapter specifically, that first chapter specifically, because that's where we talk about the disease process. Now, the second chapter in every unit goes through the lifespan. So we talk about prenatal care. What do you expect the parent who does not, the parent, because we did try to be very inclusive, um, not say mother, not say, you know, him or her. We try to be inclusive with our pronouns and such. So when we do our unfolding case study, what does the parent who's expecting a child um, need to do if they're healthy? They have a, and I keep going to renal system. That's just one of the ones I wrote, but that's the one that always sticks out because I was a dialysis nurse for so long, and there's so many dietary requirements with dialysis. But what does the parent who's expecting a child with a normal renal system need to do to make sure that their child is born with a normal, healthy renal system? And then on the other end, if we have a parent that doesn't have a healthy renal system, how does that dietary change impact their potential, you know, newborn? And then it picks up, okay, now this newborn is now with us, and this is now our client. What does it look like for dietary needs for the healthy newborn versus the newborn that's actually born with some of the possible diseases? And it looks at the different diseases that they could be born with. Was there a nutritional deficit during prenatal care that could have caused this, or is this just some other offshoot that we need to worry about that could happen to any newborn? It goes on through their childhood, and there's always this running all the way through elderly, and looking at the differences when their kidneys are not functioning fully anymore because it's just old age and they just don't work as well anymore. It also talks about, you know, certain things like the medications and your over-the-counter supplements and that kind of stuff, how they might interact with the nutritional intake of a client. But it goes all the way through the body process like that as they grow. And like I said, it kind of runs through, here's the healthy version and here's the unhealthy version. And both of these chapters are going to have an unfolding case study. So the first chapter with the next gen unfolding is kind of more focused on looking at each step underneath each section. Here's the next step of the next gen, making them make those decisions based on the next gen. Now, I will say that they're regular multiple choice type questions. They're not next gen formatted questions. So I do want to say that, because I think some people would see it and say, oh, there's no matrix. It's not next gen question formatting, but they are next gen unfolding questions as far as a case study. So just want to clarify that to be sure I'm not mixing anyone up. Somebody get mad and they look at it and say, she said. No, they're unfolding case studies as if next following the next gen tagging, but they're not next gen questions. They are regular multiple choice questions, but they follow through each section. You're going to see a point where the reader is going to have to make a decision for that same patient that something has changed. The whole idea is for them to get, like I said, to the end of the first chapter and say, okay, evaluate the outcome. What are we doing? Did it work? Did it not work? Or if it didn't work, some of the chapters I did it, if it didn't work, was it based on something the client did, or was this just not the right plan? So sometimes a couple of the chapters I wrote, I wanted them to distinguish between, was this a non-compliance issue, or was this just not the right plan for this client? Because I think it's very easy for us to say the client's not doing right, but that's not always the case. And I really want them to distinguish between the two. So on the cardiac one particularly, I did something totally different, where it was not the client, had nothing to do with what they were doing wrong, because they obviously, looking at some of the other labs, you can see they were doing what they were supposed to, that we taught them. It just wasn't working for that client. I think it's important that we teach our students that there is a difference. And then that second chapter, when we look across the lifespan, a lot of your unfolding case studies start with the pregnant parent, but the newborn is usually the client, and we follow the newborn through their life. And I think that's the easiest way to do an unfolding case study when you're looking across the lifespan, is to start with them as a newborn and move on through. because those chapters are moving through the lifespan, it is not set up with the next gen as far as recognizing cues, analyzing cues, but it is an unfolding case study throughout the chapter. So some of the other things other than the unfolding case studies that are in every chapter, some of the other features include alert boxes, and this is for information that's meant to stand out as an important safety factor or other special consideration of importance surrounding a specific topic. Usually these are going to be your evidence-based practice stuff like, hey, don't forget, you shouldn't do this. Something that sticks out to me is St. John's wort is not good to take with this, and those kind of things. Those kind of things are what alert boxes would be for. Your client teaching guideline boxes tend to focus on important nursing education for a specific topic. So if there's something that the nurse should absolutely not forget to tell a client, that's where we stick those kind of things. There are clinical tip boxes. These are meant to give additional information when you're considering your clinical practice. There are media boxes. I like those a whole lot because this is an online format, these boxes will link them to a podcast, a video clip, an audio clip, or other media resource that will enhance their learning. It's something to give them another perspective on whatever, topic we are on, if it's renal, if it's cardiac, but it's meant to enhance the learning. So it gives them a little extra versus what's just written in the chapter. And then there are questions in the media box right after for them to check their knowledge on whatever they, if it was a podcast or video clip, hey, how did you, answer this question from that kind of thing. So it's not just here's a clip. There are actual questions after that. There's special consideration boxes meant to point out specific examples that do not follow a common example. So if you have, a special group of people that something might impact differently. For instance, when you're managing hypertension, the African American community, we usually start them on different medications than we do the rest of the communities because certain blood pressure medicines don't work as well initially with them. So they're started on a different, platform. Their guidance of how we start and manage their blood pressure is different. And that's one of those things that you put as a special consideration. Trending today boxes, those are meant to present new evidence-based practice for consideration in topics of today's practice type thing. Please stop me if anyone has any questions so far. We're good so far?
Looks like, yes.
Okay. I know I try to talk slow, Anthony. I do, but
you do much better than I do. You'll hear.
I feel like I talk super fast. I guess that's from being Northern. Looking at how you can use the book. So when you're using this book as a reference or an additional reading book, you still kind of want to map it to your curriculum so that you know where you're going to use it. It's always, to me, I think that sometimes depending on how your program's set up, it gets easy to say, okay, I'm teaching this class. I'm not worried about how they use this book in other classes. And that's okay to some degree because you may want to reuse certain areas, but it gets to be redundant if they're just looking at the same areas. So I still believe wholeheartedly that when you're going to use a resource, even a wonderful free resource, that you should sit down as a program and decide where you want to use what, so that they don't, okay, we're only going to read chapter 1 and you read that about 500 times, and then they never get to chapter 10. So I think that it should still be mapped out. It's easier, I think, to use this as the medical model, only because, it tells you this is the neurology chapter. You're going to use that with the neurology problems. I think that makes it, easy to use it in that kind of model. I do have a mapping on the next couple slides for the concept-based model if you're stuck on the same model as we are, because it's based over concepts and not just disease processes, which is very nice in some ways, but it does make it a little harder when we're using a medical model kind of book. The first unit is the one that I said is a little different than the rest of the units, because all the other units start with your next gen formatted one, and then your lifespan. They all follow, the rest of them all follow that. But the first unit is used to show you the fundamentals of nutrition. So your basic stuff that you expect to have in probably any nutrition book, whether or not you're teaching nurses or your nutritionists, basic information about your vitamins, your minerals, your, fats and carbs and all those kind of things. Those are your first chapters. The chapter, I want to say it's chapter 4, right before the chapter that we get into the other unit. There is a extensive chapter on the gastro system, because it's so related to, the health of nutrition in general. And that one is very detailed. So it's a little bit outish from the other ones, because it's very detailed on assessment, and it does follow the next gen as far as how to assess the GI system, how you know if there's an actual nutritional deficit that's impacting the GI system. It goes into gut health for the GI system, and how the nurse can impact a client's gut health. So it's much more extensive. So it plays off of the other two, because there is also a gastrointestinal, unit. So the first, when you assign those gastrointestinal units, you should assign unit 4 as well, because they map together. You can still read chapter 4 by itself and then turn around and go into the other unit with the gastro stuff and read those separately. But it really makes for a better read if you're going to put them together, because they'll have much more detail on the assessment portion. Some of the other things that you'll see in the first chapter are a lot of your leadership courses and your community health courses. They can actually use some of this stuff in the first chapter. We have items in there on vulnerable populations, food security, cultural health, how to use cultural, different cultures to best guide the nutrition education that you give them. And when I show you the mapping for concept teaching, that's going to come up some where it shows exactly what chapters do these things. But unit 1, a lot of community health courses could actually use some of this as well. It doesn't just have to be in your regular med-surg courses that this book is used. So looking at the concept teaching, this is the mapping that I'm talking about. If you're not on concept teaching, or you have no idea what it is, it probably looks very crazy to you. So as a synopsis, concept teaching says, instead of we're teaching the heart, and then we're going to teach, stroke under neurology and dysrhythmias under the heart, they say, well, that all affects perfusion in the body. So stroke and heart attack is both under perfusion. So when you teach perfusion, you're going to teach something under this and something under that. It's not where I'm teaching the brain and all brain diseases get taught under there, and I'm teaching the heart and all heart diseases get taught under there. It's divided out, instead of body systems, by concept, and then whatever falls under that concept in the body is put underneath there. So this is a mapping if you're using concept model, where you're teaching concept and exemplars, and it tells you what chapter and what unit is best to use, and this is the best way to map this book. Like I said, when you look at this, it kind of gives you an idea on some of the other classes that you may be able to use these in, by looking at the concept actually. So like your accountability, advocacy, collaboration, diversity, evidence-based practice, unit 1 and chapter 1 touches on all of that. So anybody who's doing a leadership course, you could actually use unit 1 and chapter 1, because it talks about, like I said, talks about your food deserts and food insecurity, how you can help your client. It gives resources on how to help your clients if they have food insecurity. Acid base, oxygenation, that's going to be more a med-surg concept, unit 6, chapter 14. Then you have assessment, caring interventions, clinical decision-making, cellular regulation. That's your first chapter in every unit from 2 to 9. you could actually put that in a nursing fundamentals course, not just a med surg course. It works really well for both of them, but when you're teaching nursing fundamentals, assessment is the basis of nursing fundamentals. And I used to, before I was at Fayetteville Tech, I was at University of North Carolina in Pembroke. So, and I taught across the curriculum there. So I taught fundamentals, I taught Med Surg 1 and Med Surg 2. So I kind of, am able to give you insight on how you can put in either of them because I've taught in both ways. Many behavior for that concept, this is like many of the chapters do address it. There's not a single chapter for that particular concept, but because we do talk about other education, because we are looking at the main, objective, nutrition. But when you're a nurse, you can't just talk about nutrition. There are always lifestyle changes that have to go with those nutritional changes. So a lot of the chapters are going to talk about nutrition and nicotine and alcohol and all these other things that you're doing that you should stop. BMI, how you're going to reduce it. So there's a nursing focus that's holistic in every chapter. So your behaviors are going to be more addressing some of the lifestyle changes. Culture and reproduction, almost like I said, every second chapter, because we're talking about across the lifespan. The unfolding case studies are also not just one type of client. We try to go through multiple cultures and look at the different issues that you might have to deal with nutritionally when they have certain restrictions on some things that they cannot eat due to their cultural practices. The mapping goes on because if you teach concept mapping, it is very extensive. Cognition, you have unit 2, elimination. It just goes on and on. But like I said, most of the rest of them, I think, are easy if you're doing a med surg model, because fluid and electrolytes for us are going to be like your renal would be. So it's easy for you once you pick up the book as a medical model to really say, okay, I'm doing, neurology, I'm doing renal, I'm doing GI, and easy to go to those chapters. I think the first couple chapters were the ones that are a little bit more clouded if you were trying to figure out where you want to put it as far as your med surg model teaching, because they're not based on a body system. They're more those abstract concepts, I think, and then your basic concepts. So your first 4 chapters are going to be more for your, like I said, like your community, your leadership, and your fundamentals courses. Those would be a good spot to put those more than anything. The teaching and learning, the first chapters in unit 2 through 9 touch on the stuff a lot that you're supposed to teach your client. In the first unit as well, there's a whole discussion on nurse education of the client and proper practices for teaching. So these are the things that you're not going to see in other nutrition books. They're not going to talk about how a nurse is supposed to educate a client and what methods do you use to be sure they're ready to teach the client and the client's ready to listen. So those are the kind of things that I think overall are very special about this book. This is the first book I've seen. Even when I had an actual separate nutrition class when I went to nursing school like a million years ago. I'm not going to give the date. It was too long ago. But when I went to nursing school, we had a separate nutrition class, and it was like reading the regular nutrition book that they probably have in all classes if you have a separate class. It had nothing to do with nursing in it. It had everything to do with, this is how many calories a fat molecule is worth. And it told me nothing about how to take that information and actually use it as a nurse to help my client. And that's what this book does. It says, here is the information that you would know about nutrition, and here's what you do with it to give the patient the knowledge they need to best take care of their health. And that's what you need as a nurse to be able to give your patient the best care possible. So, since I made it through, what questions do you have? Somebody has a question somewhere. Yes, please.
Very well, but Dr. Bilbrew, thank you so much for sharing. And I know it's kind of sometimes unnerving. You have a lot of people on, no camera, no nothing, and you
I
just kind of go, he's
know.
great, very informative. We're seeing, I don't know if you saw him, we see a lot of emojis,
Yeah, I
reaction.
see a lot of emojis.
Pretty good. Yeah. A lot of big emoji people. A lot of people on. So yeah, please certainly ask. Um, if it's okay, I'll address one thing that came up during when you were speaking about
Huh?
getting samples and so on, and I so appreciate Christiana for our sharing. But right, so this book is nearing its final production. As Dr. Bilbrew said, we are about to publish it. It's the first in this year of the 8-book series to publish. And it's almost done. We're really close, but we like to be done before we say that it's done. There's a lot of those last accuracy checks and finalization and accessibility and quality assurance and things like that. Which is probably insurance somewhere as well. But there's so we're doing those processes. But if you wanted to get to the book, that link's actually it's right in the chat. I won't repeat it. If you go to openstax.org and click subjects, if you go to openstax.org, you'll see a few things on that site. You'll see I'll show my screen real quick if that works for everybody. Just so you just see it. You have it.
We don't use non-compliant. I don't want to say non-inherent either. I can't remember what we used, but we actually did not use the word non-compliant. Somebody on one of my reviews said that's not a nice term. And they didn't want us to use diet either. I keep saying diet, but we used nutrition as much as possible. Every once in a while, you had no choice. It just did not sound right. We had to use it. But no, there was something, I can't remember what the word was. I'm sorry. Somebody who asked that. It's been a little while. I could have, if you asked me last summer, I'd have been able to tell you because we were in the thick of it. But it was a
Thank you.
lot of revisions to
Yes.
get to where
Yeah.
we're at.
Yeah, and as we said in earlier sessions, and I think we'll that there's so much work that goes into it and so much feedback and arriving at some of the terms are very clear, like what we change things to, and some things are not. And then there's things that are going to change, next year, the year after, or things that become clear, and we'll be able to make those changes as well. You know what I do? Okay, so thank you, Lisa, for sharing about the concept based. I'll just share the some of you have seen this a few times already, but just in case you haven't, and just to be sure. So actually, I'm on the form. I'll start off. Let's go to the regular OpenStax page. So if you go to the OpenStax page, you'll have a lot of different options. You can go to help to interact with our outstanding customer support team, several of whom are on now, and that you could also reach them at info by the email address info@openstax.org. They are on phone, they're on chat, they're on email, they do it all. Log in. That's I'm not logged in. If you want to log in, you need to create an account. That's how you get instructor resources, and instructor resources are things that you'll find on these book pages. So if you see, I clicked subjects and scroll down to nursing, and I got to this page. And what we'll start to do is right now we have the 3 books populated. As we start to get closer to publication of the other books, you'll start to see them all fill in here. And the page will, if it's okay, I'll just go to page will start to look like this, and you'll see all the books available, just ready for action. But for right now, we have a few books, and we just did these groupings. We know that nutrition and pharmacology are not the same course, but we were just thinking of logical ways to arrange things so that we're not, having endless scrolling and so on. You'll see an overview. On the left-hand side, you'll see more links, more opportunities for online view, PDF, purchasing prints, and so on. And then you'll be able to get to the instructor resources from this page as well. And we'll be posting instructor's manual, test bank, PowerPoint lecture slides, the course cartridges in the various LMS systems. We'll have them for Canvas and Blackboard and D2L and so on. And so that you'll be able to get them. And then there are student resources as well, and so on. These don't include, robust, end-to-end homework systems or courseware platforms as sort of a part of the basic offering. However, those are very frequently aligned with our textbook. We have a very dynamic and energetic and supportive ecosystem of partners who have provided resources around our book. As you see, it's a lot of them. What we'll do to make this easier is we don't have to get into this in too much depth now, but for things like, simulations, homework systems, other things you might need, maybe, I don't know if you need that in nutrition as much as you might need it in another course, really just depends on your program and your course, but those are available as well. But to get to the book, again, subjects, nursing, nutrition for nursing, and then you can download a sample. There's no restriction on this. There's no barrier to getting in terms. You saw the pop up for a donation request. That we appreciate those, but you can download the PDF sample and the final textbook when it's final as many times as you want to as many devices as you want. The online version is accessible through whatever means you would like to reach it. Phone, laptop, desktop, different types of devices accessing the internet. It's available and it's accessible through there. And then, as you see, if you've been on previous sessions, we'll progress through the text, and there's features and all this richness that Dr. Bilbrew described. Okay, so I will stop talking. I see we have some more chats and maybe a question or two. Oh, that's not. Thank you for that comment.
Oh yeah, I forgot at the end we have the little, I guess it's so common in every book. I forgot at the end of every chapter there's questions too.
Here,
And the
yeah.
key terms. It's so common in every book. I guess I didn't think of it, but that is a feature that is there. Summary and all that. Now that you pull up the draft and it reminds me.
Yeah, no, it's a big piece, and so everybody knows, the answers are provided, and there's some that are instructor facing only and student facing. That's all measured by what the actual needs are, and then the ancillaries go beyond this. So
also, if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see at the end of every chapter too, we put suggested readings. Now, one of the things that I very much stressed in all the meetings, that these readings are actually valuable. So I know that you see that in a lot of books, they put suggested readings and they mean nothing. Those readings are actually valuable. I have every chapter that I looked at and every chapter that I wrote, which is a big chunk, and every time we had a meeting and I worked with all of them, that was one of the things that I stressed. Make sure that the thing they're giving you is actually some value to that chapter, because to me, it's just a wasted space in the book if we're not giving them something usable. So if you're trying to give your students something extra to read, because some classes like to give them an article review as homework, that right there is something you can use because it gives them more information on that chapter. They're not just put in there as a filler. I just want to put that out there. They're really valuable.
That's great. That's so much thought that goes into that because we know, right, and I'm not saying there's not an OpenStax textbook that has these in there that really are invaluable, so, but I, so appreciate the depth that went into this, these choices and thinking about how people actually use books. It's funny because they're free and they're open, and though, the length of the book affects things like the print price, but for the typical textbook, the online is open, but we really do try to keep them purposeful and focused because we know that students, can get very easily overwhelmed. There's already enough information to get. So having readings that are very valuable for them, and so having, 5 or 6 that are really valuable is better than 20 that they're never gonna read. So let me just see. So are those links archived? So that's a great question. So these specific links, you'll see they are going right to the dedicated place. So New York Times and things like that. So I understand, I think what you're getting at, William, is, will these be persistent? So for these specific ones, our reference links are not. Other links in the textbooks under the links to learning and other things that are more part of the mainstay of the chapter are. So we make a short link, openstax.com/whatever, healthy eating or something, and that will link to that. But so these specific links are not permanent, but the other ones in the chapters are. And we might be able to, I'm not trying to overpromise, maybe able to switch these over to something a little more, into like a short link situation where we can do a permalink or something else like that.
To the other question that was just asked, as far as I know, none of these need a subscription. You should be able to open them and go straight through to them. If they need a subscription, it's not a paid subscription. It should be something that they should be able to easily access.
Yeah, and I don't know for certain because I know right in the first one here we're seeing a New York Times one, but some New York Times articles are actually open, especially
Yes, that's what
non-national.
we tried to do, make sure that they were open. Because we know this is a free resource and it should be as easily accessed as possible. We tried our best to make sure that it was not something that we had a resource that only us could get into, because it'd be useless then.
And this might be a repeat of things we've said on earlier sessions, but just to kind of to repeat that. So the textbooks is available and cohesive to be used, as it is, as it's been provided. Right? That's how Dr. Bilbrew and her colleagues built this book. But you as actually you discussed a lot. There's different contexts for this course and different ways that nutrition is taught in nursing. The fact that the whole book is free to students but also open for you means that you could repost it, post parts of it, however works best for your course specifically. That's what you have. And over time, when we start out, and it's great because Carrie gets posted the note about the OER Texas hubs, which we'll get into depth in a second. That's a great reminder. But what you start to see on these community hubs and things like that is that as resources are available, not just OpenStax resources, all OER, is that others who have used it and adapted it, they'll post their syllabus, they'll post their version of the mapping. Here's a change I had to make. Here's an alternate version. Here's how I changed this one chapter, or how I pulled out this one set of resources. You'll start to see those get posted on those communities as well. I'll just kind of share what that is. So I'll click it while we're here. So this is OpenStax is OpenStax. I shared that. We're deeply connected to the THCB and in this project, and they have created a nursing hub. And what you'll see on this site are first information about the summit that we're all attending right now. And you can learn about the summit, and we will also share that we've the videos and other assets from the summit will be posted to this site as well. But then if you scroll down, if you're more about the One Summit, this is another place where you'll see all the textbook drafts, and these are available now. So you can go, we're on the nutrition site and on the nutrition presentation, but if you want to check out fundamentals, you can go ahead and do that, and the other courses as well. And then at the bottom, I think as Carrie was getting to, we have these groups, and you won't see many, maybe some people, we got 2 members joined during the session today. So wonderful. So this was at one person earlier. These get out to be hundreds of people over time. We haven't launched the books yet, so you don't see the people signing in. But what you'll start to see is community being built around the series itself and around specifically, each specific book, where people can share resources, engage in discussions with each other and stuff around the course or the discipline or whatever else is going on. And you see very diverse types of conversations happening in these hubs and these discussion forums related to each arena, and they can complement what is happening, in the nursing and allied health arena in general. So that's the hub. So we definitely encourage you to go there. The link is there. Go there. Go either join the overall environment or sign up for one of the or more than one of the specific textbook groups, and you can see the samples as well. Okay, so I will stop sharing. All right. Any other questions? I want to make sure if there are any, we have time to answer. But I know this is a unique case because Dr. Bilbrew is delivering our next session as well, and that's actually a 2-hour one, or a little less than 2 hours.
The workshop.
Yeah, so we have a little time. We actually have, because we're giving everybody a bit of a break before that one. We'll start that at it's 1:15. I'm sorry, it's 2:15 Central. Sorry, 2:15. I'm getting my time zones. 2:15 Central, 3:15 Eastern, 1:15 Mountain. So you'll be able to join that. But if there are any questions, definitely go ahead and go ahead and ask.
I think I'll join that nursing hub so that I can put some of the info on there. That way,
Yeah.
since it'll be new, people can start off with something and then change it as they go around.
Yeah. Right. And yeah, it's they're great environments because, like I said, you'll see people starting with something and then changing and enhancing it. And some of the textbook publishing, I'm sorry, textbook or OER programs, especially, OER that the THECB sponsors, and those in other states, Georgia, Florida, wherever, they are people produce resources around those as well, and then post them to those locations as well. So people who incorporate it into their syllabi or create assessments or activities or something, it becomes a really great environment.
You have one book on there already that you might want to put a link to the nursing is your A&P book,
Hmm.
because I'm going to tell you, I've already used it as a resource. Students, by the time they get in the program, especially because I'm the last class, I'm the capstone, by the time they get to me, they don't remember that stuff. So I'm like, here's a resource right here to go remember how the good stuff works first before we tell you how it doesn't work. So in case y'all didn't know, they have a good A&P book that you can give them as a reference, because they done sold the book by the time they got to you and they ain't used it in a long time. So you might want to put a link as,
Yeah.
yeah, I see people laughing. Yes, put that under the nursing books too, even though it's already written.
That's great. Thank you. That's a great idea. And yeah, and that's. Oh, thank you for again. I mentioned this in the last. Alita knows that book really well because she created a H5P version of it. It's really awesome. Um, but right, and if that's not clear, I really appreciate you saying that, because the other thing is, we've said this in a couple of places, but all the OpenStax books, and that's the point, the other resources you find on OER Texas and other locations, they are all available to you. So like that A&P book is a really direct correlation, but our book in College Success, which has things on study skills and belonging and career planning and
Oh,
financial
really?
literacy, yeah, that
Write
might be
that one down.
useful. Yeah, so that's that. We have a writing guide. So that's it's built around, first year composition. But of course, it's got things on preparing and drafting presentations, write papers of various types, doing research, using evidence. That's a handbook. And then around, we have math and other sciences, chemistry, organic chemistry, things like that. So sorry to just it's not really like a commercial. We're not selling anything. It's all free. But you
That's what
can
I said.
certainly, or, yeah, but you can use it in and around all your courses, link your students to it, yeah, I think it's a great point. We'll make that connection clear. Um, uh, so great. Okay, well, it doesn't look like we have a lot of questions, and I'm very eager to keep discussion going, but I know you do have another session, so I want to give you a bit of a break. So if it's okay, I think maybe we'll wrap it up here. Again, thank you all for joining, and for your questions and comments. Anything, I think we got to all the questions. If there's anything that's outstanding, we'll follow up. Again, feel free to email us at info@openstax.org if you have any questions or there's anything we can help with. We will post a recording for this session after the summit, and so on. And we'll provide some information via surveys and things like that. And oh, thank you. We just posted Amanda just posted an interest list, so we can sign up. If you sign up or you register or log in for OpenStax, we're not sharing your information widely or anything like that. We keep it to ourselves so that we can just, you can use it for the best way of getting the information. So again, thank you all so much. Thank you, Dr. Bilbrew. So appreciate it. As we're saying here, the next session is the NCLEX workshop. It's starting at 2:15 Central. And we hope to see you all there. It's a little bit different from the other sessions you've attended. I would say it's a little more intensive and a little more work. It's not going to be us talking as much, or maybe it will be, but it's a little more intensive. So just keep them. It's a more of a workshop. So keep that in mind. But really eager to see you all there if you'd like to join. And again, thank you so much. Thanks, Emerald. Have a great day.